What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a break from the $500 Turbo Civic build, and we're going to be working on the GTO. If you guys seen a few videos back, we did our own custom dual pump setup in the tank, and it's been working out fine, but we do have something going on with it. Before we added the second pump, when you would kill the key or power to the pump, the pressure would drop a couple PSI and then hold steady for days. Well, now that we've got our second pump in there, when you kill the power to the pump or kill the key, the pressure will drop all the way down to 0. And I don't see any external leaks. We don't have anything going on outside of the tank that I can see so far. So we're going to have to dig into the tank. The pump that we added was a WALBRO 450. We already had a 525 in there. But the 450s came out of the HELLCAT when we upgraded the triple pump setup to 3 525s. And that car runs on an Ignite E90, which is an ethanol fuel. So these 450 that we threw in the car could be gummed up a little bit. Not really sure yet. So we're going to try to dive into that today. So let's get through the intro and jump right into today's video. So now that we've gone through the intro, I wanted to give you guys a look at what we're working with. So we're inside the GTO with the main power on, and I'm going to go ahead and cycle this pump on. So as you can see, we've got our gauges up here and our fuel pressure is all the way over here on the end. So let's go ahead and cycle the key. You can see it kicks on, holding 63 PSI, right about where it should be. And then we'll wait for it to kick off. And as you can see, it drops right down to basically 0. So that's what we're trying to fix today. We've got a few ideas on where to start. Like I mentioned, this pump came out of the HELLCAT, which runs on E85 or E90. So the pump could be a little bit gummed up. So I think before we go pulling the tank apart, we're going to try to power up that second pump and see if it'll work any kind of sludge or any goo out of it and see if it goes back to working. I highly doubt that's going to work, but it's worth a shot. So let's give that a try before we start digging into the tank. All right, guys, so we've got the hood up on the GTO right here, and we're going to do a little bit of testing. I want to kick on that second pump and see, A, if pressure comes up, and B, if maybe there's something stuck in it or a little bit of junk buildup, and if running it will clear it out. So we've got the Hobbs switch. That's how our second pump is triggered to come on. We've got a little 4 PSI Hobbs switch right here. So I disconnected the wire from it, and we're going to supply ground that goes to the relay so that the second pump thinks that it is time to kick on. So we have it set up so that the second pump can only run if the first pump is running and if it meets the 4 PSI Hobbs switch. So that's what we're going to bypass right now. We'll run the single pump, and then I will supply ground to that with the power probe, and it should kick on the second pump. And like I said, we'll see if pressure goes up, and we will also see if there's anything stuck in it maybe, and maybe this will help get it out before we go digging into the tank. So let's get the power probe set up. I'm going to have you guys watch the pressure, and we'll see what happens. Single pump, second pump. Single pump, dual pump. You can hear the difference.
Yeah. Every time that circulates, it goes up to 63.
Yeah, and then it drops it right back down to 0 still. So that didn't work. Let's go ahead and start popping the hat off the tank and see if we can't see a visible leak somewhere. So now that we know we've got some sort of issue inside the tank, there are no external leaks, so we're going to have to pull this tank back and figure out what we've got going on. I went over this in the previous video where we made our own dual pump hanger inside the tank using the stock basket, so I'm not going to go crazy in depth. So let's get the main power killed, and then we can get to work. Get these straps right out of the way for now. Alright guys, so as you can see, we got the tank pulled back. I've got the feed and return lines hooked back up so that we can cycle the system, and I've got the hat opened up. Can't see much inside there with the camera, but if you guys want to see how we did our dual pump setup with the hanger and stock basket, you can go back on the channel and check out the last fuel system video. I went over it in pretty good detail. So we got some jumper wires made so that we can power up the 525. I'm going to power the 525 first because I want to see if fuel is getting pushed back through the 450. We got Dad up front watching the fuel pressure gauge on the rail, and we're gonna see what we can come up with here. So I'll set you guys up, we'll power this pump and see what we can find. Ready?
Yep. Stop.
And then it drops, right?
Yeah.
Alright, so we're powering our 525, guys. We had 60 psi fuel pressure up front, but then it drops as soon as we stop the power. Let's try it again. I don't see any leaks at that Y.
I just heard something up here.
Probably air, maybe.
Yeah, air. Now she drops.
Okay, I'm not seeing any leaks at our hoses like I was suspecting. I'm gonna hold the pumps up a little bit and see if maybe it's leaking at our feed line coming off the pumps. Seeing air down there.
That's what I'm wondering. That's what I was saying about clamps and shit. Or a line.
Oh, I see our leak, guys. Yep, I see 2 leaks. That sucks.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show you guys this. I don't know if you can see that pump down there in the center of that little opening, but watch it when I give it power. It's hard to see on film, but it's actually leaking right at the nipple where it comes off the pump to feed that line. So we're gonna have to get this basket up out of our way and try to put a new clamp or new line in there. I went and grabbed a couple of our old 5-gallon fuel jugs, and then my little transfer pump. We use that a lot at the track for the HELLCAT, pumping the Ignite fuel into it, but I'm gonna use that, try to suck the tank down as low as we can. It's probably right about here. So we got quite a bit of fuel to get out of it. So we'll get that pumped into these jugs, and then we can start working inside the tank and try to get those hose clamps either tightened or replace them or figure out why they're leaking. So I was able to get the top section and center section of our hat and fuel basket assembly out. I was trying not to disconnect our Y or any of our other hoses so that we don't create a new leak, since we're trying to solve a leak. So we just want to mess with the problem areas. So I'm going to try to move that hose clamp and see if I can get it a little bit tighter and do the same thing on the other one and see if we can't remedy our issue. I'm hoping that if we can get a few more cranks on those hose clamps, they'll tighten up, and we will test it before we put it all back together this time. Worst case, we can try a different hose clamp, or I have extra of the corrugated hoses. So let's see what we can make work. I definitely got it noticeably tighter. So I'm gonna try to do the same thing with the other pump, and then maybe grab a container we can set that pump inside of and kick it on and see if it still leaks out of there. See what happens. All right, we're gonna try it. I'm just gonna bump it so if it sprays. That one's still leaking. All right, so the one in the tank is still leaking. Well, it's a lot better. All right, I'm gonna try a couple different style hose clamps here and see if we can't get this leak to go away. All right, guys, we're gonna try powering it up again. We cut the hose back a little bit and put a new hose clamp on it and moved it up. We're gonna see if it holds pressure this time. Looks dry. All right, guys, I'm gonna show you. I got you on a tripod, so bear with me here. but I'm gonna try to show you on the regulator here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's holding steady right about 40, just a touch under 40, which is what it used to do with the single pump. It would pump up to whatever I had it set at, and then it would just chill out around 40, 45 after the pumps kicked off. So I think we're making progress. We definitely stopped the major leaks that we saw. So I think we're pretty well good. We're gonna let it sit a few minutes and just make sure that it continues to hold pressure, and then I'm gonna start working on putting this thing back together. All right guys, so I think we got everything inside the tank buttoned up. Now we can start getting ready to close this thing back up. There it goes. It's always a pain to get it to go into that last little notch. But that's all down, sealed up. We should be good to go here. Now we can just start plugging things back in. Alright, that's that. Start sliding the tank back into place. So since we had our feed and return lines hooked up for testing, I'm going to have to disconnect them again to get the fuel tank brace in, which sucks because now the system's holding pressure. So when I open these, they're probably going to spray fuel, but it is what it is. We're going to have to open them up regardless. Now we can start getting the main brace back in. Alright, now we can start hooking up the mesh system again and get the fuel lines hooked up, and then start working on getting the battery back in. Hook up this harness. There you go. Now all we got to do is throw the battery back in. Alright guys, we're going to start dumping fuel in this thing, and then we can test it with the key and make sure we are good. Alright guys, we've got everything buttoned up, fueled up. Now let's go ahead and give it a try. Now that everything's back together, we're back in the car. Fuel pressure is on the left. Let's go ahead and cycle it and see what happens. Holding 48 PSI, 49 actually. So that's doing pretty good. Let's go check for leaks. Everything seems dry. That's a good sign. Let's try it a couple more times here, and then we'll fire this thing up and make sure we're good to go. It is the next morning, and I wanted to let the car sit overnight and see if it would hold any type of fuel pressure. And I just took a look, and it's still maintaining right about 18 PSI. So that's a huge improvement over what we had. As you guys seen before, as soon as the pump would cycle off, the pressure would drop down to 0. So holding 18 PSI all night is a major improvement. Those stupid little 50-cent hose clamps were causing all of our issues, so I'm happy that we got that figured out and taken care of. So next thing I want to do is I want to power up the second pump since we're still waiting on a new Hobbs switch. So I'll do it manually. We'll cycle the key, run both pumps, make sure that pressure comes up and holds and doesn't leak down, and we'll fire this thing up, back it out, let it run for a few minutes, and verify we have no other leaks. So we got Dad in the car. He's going to cycle the key, and I'm going to supply ground to a relay to kick on our second pump, and we'll see what happens here. All right, Dad, go ahead. Pump is kicking on. Kick the second pump back off. Now let's see what happens when it kicks off. All right, so we're holding right around 42-ish PSI. So it looks, even after we kick on our second pump, it's holding pressure just like it should. So let's go ahead and fire this thing up, let it warm up, back it out, and we'll start checking for any external leaks, and I think it'll be good to go. This thing running, I'm not seeing any leaks. Fuel pressure is still holding perfect. Pressure seems to be holding perfect, so we're gonna let it run a few more minutes and give it a final once over. Alright guys, so sorry if it's a little bit dark out here. I was just editing the video and I can't find the outro that I made, so I'm gonna film another one right now real quick. But as you guys seen, the GTO is holding fuel pressure now, which is a huge improvement over what we had. That little 50-cent hose clamp was our hang up, so I'm glad that we got that figured out. Also, you guys might have noticed that we got the wheels switched around on the GTO. We don't have the big radials on the back. We have the street tires that were on the front, now on the back. And the reason for that was, if you guys seen the dyno video where we made just about 700 horsepower, but we had to end the runs early at 5,000 RPM, because this thing was developing somewhat of a vibration. So we think that that was attributed to the big radials we had on the back on the 15-inch wheels. So we switched the wheels around to give it another shot. So make sure to stay tuned for that. We're going to be getting this thing back on the dyno here very soon and see what we can make for power. And now that we have the dual pumps, we might even dump some E85 in it and make a power run and see what it'll make, because we do want to tune this thing on flex fuel. That was the whole reason for going dual pumps. So, as always, I appreciate you guys for checking out the channel. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell. Also, I made a TikTok, and check out our Instagram, Bought to Build Official, and we will catch you on the next one.
Bye.